This is Mission Aligned Intelligence, a podcast about AI for nonprofits that starts with mission, not technology, which is the topic we're going to dive into a bit more today. So, today is first of likely many episodes about the ethics of using AI in nonprofits and the tensions that we've seen on how to evaluate why and where to use it, because we have all heard that AI can dramatically increase your capacity. But the question we want to dive into today is the capacity for what? I'm Alissa Condra here with Mike Mitchell, and we are Nonprophet AI, bringing you practical ways to use and think about AI. We're not here to tell you AI is amazing or AI is scary, but rather to help you think through those different tensions that come up. So Mike and I have been talking to nonprofit leaders for over a year now, and even people outside of nonprofits. And I think they generally fall into a few categories on AI. Early adopters, curious, skeptical, or sometimes just terrified. But even those that aren't terrified, including us, have some fear and worry about the ethics of AI as a whole, and certainly within their organizations. So what we want to discuss today is what questions nonprofit staff should be discussing when deciding what and how much to have AI help with or to bring AI into their organization. But the good news is that AI is not the first place where nonprofits have to wrestle with these tough questions and ethical issues. You already do it all the time. And just like everything, it's something that needs to be thought through with care. So, Mike, you've been thinking and writing and speaking a lot about this lately. So, why don't you kick us off? How should nonprofits be approaching this question of the ethical choices of AI when deciding if and how to adopt it?
Yeah, thanks, Alyssa. I think that there are a number of things to think about when you think about AI. And the first thing is that it should be thought about in the paradigm of other ethics risks in organizations. And so it might be good to just take a step back if you're running a nonprofit or if you work for a nonprofit, that there are constant ethics risks all the time. So the first one is mission creep. Right? Organizations face mission creep regularly. The way it's supposed to work is there's supposed to be clear lines around the mission, but the way it actually works is actually quite subjective. So you might have a strong ED and a weak board where the ED drives what is quote unquote mission, or the vice versa is you have a strong board, a weak ED, and the board is driving mission. And so they all decide, whichever is the stronger, what falls within mission and what doesn't. But that's not the way it's supposed to work. And there are other ethical challenges related to mission. So another one that we've all heard of is donors. Donors give you, let's say you're a $3 million organization, you have a donor that comes along and says, I'm going to give you $500,000, but I want you to do X, Y, or Z. Does the organization take the money? Do they not take the money? That's a real ethical question and a real mission risk. And I think the final, and this may even be a version of the second, is competitive scope expansion. So it may not be a donor that comes along that wants you to do something, but it might be an opportunity from let's say a government offers an RFP or a foundation offers an RFP. And the executive director and the board are thinking, gosh, we ought to go for this because we could really broaden our work, get more money, et cetera. So every AI adoption decision should begin and end with mission, but it's important to see AI as not something that's new to be considered as part of the ethical landscape. And that's why people should see AI as a part of the conversation that's been a part of the conversation for nonprofits since they were born, not as something new.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And my background is more on the corporate side, and there is some parallels there, like having to make decisions based on shareholders, for example. But I'm wondering in nonprofits that you've worked in where you got to see this really closely, you if there's certain things that make organizations maybe better at wrestling with these types of issues or questions? Is there some that you've seen that do it really well or do it really poorly? Or is it like just something that everyone has to deal with every day, all the time, no matter how well set up they are?
Yeah, I think there are three things. I think one is there needs to be board and executive director alignment over what falls in and outside of mission. The second is that the staff needs to be bought into what that mission is. And then the things that you're doing should be constantly tested against a strategic plan. Most organizations have a strategic plan, and even if they don't, there's some version of a strategic plan every year when an organization passes a budget. So these are some of the things that should be thought about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bringing this back to AI, this is, I think what we're saying is the human and the organizations should be thinking about AI in the same lens. So the humans driving the AI and deciding, does this AI tool and what it can achieve fit into that strategic plan, for example. So drive, not AI driving the program, but the organization making that decision strategically first.
Yeah, it's not what can this AI tool do, but what does the mission require and does the tool serve it? So it's not can AI make us faster? It's should we be doing this at all? And if so, does the AI help us do it better for the people that we serve or the cause that we serve? This sounds obvious, but it's easy to get swept up in the promise of technology. And AI is just a perfect example of it, that which promises you that three times more your output is going to happen if you just get this technology, but no one's asking output of what.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at some level, we're guilty of this as well. We start the conversation with our clients by saying, we can help increase your capacity, reduce staff burnout by getting some of the repetitive tasks off your plate. But one thing we've been really trying to be very conscious of is taking that time to sit with the clients, get them on board, sit with their staff, and really inventory where their time is going and what those mission critical tasks are that they want to be spending the most time on. So what do they feel is the best use of their time from a human standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, and what is the support task that really AI can help with? Because I think what you said is right. Doing the wrong things faster doesn't serve anyone.
Yeah, it's mission, not efficiency, is the measure. And it's not a new question for nonprofits. They face this all the time. I'll just give you two examples. Habitat for Humanity, there's this constant question of do we hire vendors to build a house faster? That builds more houses. So theoretically, it provides more affordable housing. But at the same time, there are fewer volunteers that are working on the houses that get exposed to the issue. So there's no clear black and white line, and it's really trying to figure out where that is. Another example would be using technology to generate more funding applications. And that is an example of what is the purpose of doing more applications? Are you just pushing more stuff out the door? And are you going to win a bunch of awards that were generically written that don't have real clarity? And is that going to box you in as an organization to do things that are not necessarily, again, going back to the mission? So that's really important.
Yeah, yeah. So you're talking about something that we've talked about quite a bit as well. You're the framework that is a part of a lot of what we do. And I think is really important to underscore here, which includes the idea of the mission primacy test. So this is part of the larger mission aligned intelligence framework, which I do want to spend some time in other episodes to go through. But starting with this idea of mission primacy, can you introduce that framework and some of the questions that we try to get organizations to think about before adopting AI?
Yeah. So the first question is, does this advance our mission or does it just make operations better, easier? So that would mean, is this really just something that's tactical, that is just an operations thing, or does it really advance mission? So these aren't always the same thing. Operations serve mission, but mission doesn't exist to serve operations. Like nonprofits don't exist without a mission, and that is why they do exist. And if you can't draw a clear line from the AI use case to mission impact, you should pause. The second thing is, what will we do with the capacity that we free up? And does that serve the mission? So, an example would be if you free up, if you have a staff of 8 and you use AI and that frees up 4 hours for each of them a week, that's essentially having another full time equivalent for a whole month. And so this is where most organizations don't plan ahead. AI saves time, but where does the time go? And if you don't decide that intentionally before applying it, you're not really making a change. It gets absorbed by more of the same. And so the goal is to redirect capacity to the high judgment relational work that actually moves mission. And that's why I think we're doing what we're doing behind this whole philosophy of mission aligned intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is something that AI users as a whole are realizing as well, that even on a personal level, if you're using AI to make certain tasks faster, what happens naturally if you're not intentional about it is you just do more of those tasks. But stepping back to say, is this actually aligning with my goals, is the same thing that we're suggesting to organizations. Is this advancing the mission?
Yeah, and the way to think about it, I think, is if as a first step, even before you're asking about what to do with that extra capacity, you as an executive director or you as a senior staff member should be taking staff members out to lunch to talk about that and get them to think about it so that you're not just changing the actions, but you're changing the culture. And once the culture changes, then people are going to use that time in a way that's more effective. And it'll all go back to being mission aligned, hence the culture being aligned. And then you're using and applying the intelligence of those staff more creatively.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing I want to add here, maybe we can talk about this a bit too. A big fear that people tell us is that AI is here to reduce staff. And they even say it to our face, where you're here to get rid of people. And that is never what our intention. And really, I don't think there's very many organizations that are even close to that level of efficiency. I think your example of if everybody can get 4 hours back in their week, that's something that they can then use to advance the mission. That's not enough efficiency that it's going to mean like mass layoffs in some of these small organizations. So I hope when people hear you talk about this framework, they're realizing that by evaluating critically what AI can do and where this new capacity could be better spent, they can truly free up their existing staff to do the work directly towards their mission. Tasks like building relationships and serving their people in a way that AI will never be able to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've been trying to leave people with something to do this week. And I think those two questions you asked is the perfect sort of homework. Pick an AI tool that you're currently using or considering using and run through those two questions we discussed today. So, is this advancing the mission or is it supporting operation? And then where would that freed capacity actually go? So if it can do all of the things you're planning to do with it, what will, that staff member or your team do with that existing time? And the answer could be go home before dinner. That's fine too. It doesn't have to be more work that you want to put on someone's plate. We've heard from a lot of nonprofit staff that they're working unpaid overtime because they are so passionate about what they're doing. Have those discussions, this make your organization have that culture of openness and being able to talk about what you want to bring in and how that can really affect the organization in the right direction. Talk about those two questions, write down the answers, actually write them down so you can think about it on your own and then bring it to your team. I think taking 15 minutes, 30 minutes to ask these questions of yourself and discuss them with others could save you from bringing in tools that don't get adopted or don't serve the mission or just get you to do more busy work or more work that is moving you in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and when you put mission first, AI becomes a question of alignment, like we've been talking about, not just adoption, which is actually freeing. It gives you permission to say no to tools that just don't fit. And it helps you recognize the tools that are genuinely going to serve the work, which is really key.
Yeah, so next time we want to continue talking about some of these ethics and tensions in adopting AI. So I think logical next step would be to go into the data and privacy tensions around AI and talk to listeners about what we've heard and what they've probably been worried about or experiencing in their own organizations. So it's really about how to build intelligence about your programs without exposing the people in them, and why the most valuable thing AI can do is connect the intelligence in your organization that you already have, that your staff members already have. So if you've ever felt like your staff know things that are not captured in systems, this will be the perfect episode for you.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for listening to Mission Aligned Intelligence. We are Alissa and Mike from Nonprofit AI. Find us at nonprophet.ai if you're navigating these questions in your own org, or we just love to hear what you're learning. And if you found this interesting, please send it to a friend, share it with a coworker, and we'd love your help in getting the word out because we are about building intelligence in the nonprofit community. Thanks for listening.